Welcome back. It's the S to the P and the Bushy Show, episode 2. Bushy, so glad you're back with us, and that we're doing this again. It was a lot of fun last week. How are you feeling this week?
I'm feeling really good. I'm very excited for the second episode, and we survived the first one, and now we're ready to do another one. Let's just
Yeah.
hopefully this sequel is going to be really good.
Speaking of which, do you have any sequels that you like better than the first?
Well, obviously the first one that comes to mind is Empire Strikes Back. Everybody really enjoys that. I do as well. As older I got, I didn't really enjoy it as a kid, but the older I've gotten, the more I've appreciated that sequel. How about you?
I mean, as a kid, everyone loves that happy ending, but yeah, Empire, very good. And then, of course, I like The Dark Knight better than Batman Begins if you look at the Nolan Batman trilogy. And then, of course, D2 The Mighty Ducks 2 is superior to Mighty Ducks 1.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, and you got lose some of the bad characters, bring in some new ones with some more dynamics. I like that one better.
Exactly. It such a great movie, and they had a better opponent. I think Iceland was just a lot more intimidating than the Hawks.
That's another discussion for another show, though, man. You could talk movie sequels all day, right?
Definitely, yes. I'm in it. Let's do it. I'm just kidding.
However, today we're gonna do our best and worst of last week. We're gonna look at the week that's coming up, see what's on the slate for this weekend's games, and then of course we are going to break down our top 10 nicknames of all time in sports. Should be a fun show, and we hope you'll stick around to the end. Give us some comments here on our YouTube channel, and feel free to weigh in on our top 10 nicknames debate later on in the show. Looking back at last week, though, Bushy, what were your thoughts on the action there? We'll start with the NCAA football games. What did you like? What did you see on Saturday?
Well, we got to see the Mike Leach experience, going from Mississippi State. Last week we praised him a lot for going into to LSU and beating LSU, the defending national champions. And then the following week, they just look like they used up all their emotion, all their skill, for the LSU game, and then they forgot how to play football.
Yeah, but it is definitely a roller coaster, that Mike Leach experience. It should be a good ride at Disneyland, at Sports Disneyland.
The Mike Leach air raid experience. I love it.
It'll be the highest going roller coaster of all time, and then
It just drops. It's just unbelievable. It was insane just watching that game. It was just not fun. It really wasn't. And it was just like, where is this high powered offense? But usually it takes time, especially since he's coming into a new culture, a new school. And, hopefully if he recruits, he'll have the team, go in the right direction.
I hope so. I do like Mike Leach, and I think, he is definitely one of the more exciting coaches, one of the more fun coaches to watch as far as a brand of football goes. I was shocked to see that the West Virginia Baylor game be so low scoring as it was. I mean, I'm used to like the 70-66 West Virginia Baylor game that we were getting like a couple of years ago. And I mean, it's still a good game. It still went into double overtime, but it was definitely not the high powered offensive game that we're used to seeing from those two teams.
I know, and the game had to go into overtime too to kind of make up for the scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, another good game that I saw was the TCU victory over Texas last week. That was a very good game.
And it goes back to the previous week as well. We were talking about Texas, maybe a potential team to compete, maybe for the national playoff, and just seeing it now, and it's just like, oh, in Texas, they tried to make the comeback again, and then fumbling on the 1 yard line. It was just like, oh, so hard to predict. This Big 12 is.
Absolutely. And I mean, Gary Patterson, another one of those great coaches that, has always put together a good, tough team on paper. And it was fun to see him go into Texas and get the win.
How do you feel about Iowa State, actually, given I'm going to give props here to Iowa State, winning their first home game against Oklahoma since 1960. That's just like insane.
It's crazy. I was watching that game. It was a fun game to watch. Yeah, I think it was, almost 28 years since that had happened before we were born. It was 28 years before we were born the last time
Oh
Iowa
yeah,
State beat Oklahoma. I see you got the Iowa State colors rocking. Does that motivate?
definitely. But yeah, it's for the Cobra Kai. Got to rock the Cobra Kai, especially with this awesome Netflix series. But yeah, got the red for the Iowa State. I got to give props. Iowa State, love it. They got a great coach, and they always seem like they always be a tough team to beat.
Yeah. As I said last week, I'm always glad to see Oklahoma lose. And it was fun to see a team beat them that hasn't beaten them in 60 years.
Well, going back to to Oklahoma, I mean, it's just insane how good they've been the past 20 years. The fact that they haven't lost back-to-back games since 99, haven't lost back-to-back Big 12 games since 98. I mean, the last time that happened, you and I were in elementary school, and now
Oh,
we're fully grown adults. I mean, it's just crazy. Stuff has happened this year
it
that just
is,
hasn't
man.
happened.
It's nuts, and it goes to show you, like you said, the unpredictability of the season that we're about to have. Obviously, a lot of schools had a lot less time to prepare for the season, and I wonder if that's showing here in these first few weeks. That being
Definitely.
said, I would like to go back to Iowa State because that was the first time, and I mean, I'm sorry to say this, that I've really missed fans at a sporting event.
They looked the fans in the stand. They looked they looked ready. It was awesome. They I could see the joy and the emotion through the TV of these fans of something they really haven't experienced a lot, and that's success over Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, though, it was a smaller crowd than they would have let in. Normally, that crowd would have been huge. And again, I think that was the first time since COVID happened that we've unfortunately missed the storming of the court, or the field in this case, that would have likely happened after that victory.
Oh, definitely. It would have been a ton of black since Iowa State wore black that game. It definitely would have been a ton of black on the field with the
Yeah, man, it was so sad to see that those guys at Iowa State finally get the first win over Oklahoma in 60 years, but then don't get the joy of storming the field afterward. Once again, storming the court is illegal, but I mean, it just happens, and there's certain situations where you just have to do it, and that would have definitely been one.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever stormed the field?
Both times it happened when I was at Mizzou. I was covering the game, so technically I was already on the court or field. So thankfully I couldn't get in trouble for it, but I still ran out and just kind of jumped joyously in the crowd as I was trying to hold the camera. And
And trying to not get trampled.
oh yeah, absolutely. I try not to get trampled, but I mean it was fun to be a part of those scenes, man. It definitely was. And like I said, I know it's illegal, but it's still a fun part of especially a college game. And that one had it all. You had the victory over an opponent, a rival that has really had your number. It was a school that going into the season was ranked in the top 10. And then obviously it was such a big key win for that program that it met all the conditions for a field storm. And I'm sad they didn't get the chance to do it.
Well, there's always next year, hopefully. So hopefully we'll get more of these.
Absolutely. We can only hope so.
Definitely. Also, another game that jumped out on me. Actually, I was watching it a lot during the afternoon session. It was SMU against Memphis. It was actually like a really good game, and it just felt like a really back and forth game between two teams that really didn't like each other. And then SMU, not ranked, but now ranked this week. And then Memphis was ranked at the time. And just, it was just a good back and forth affair. And I just enjoyed every ounce of it. I mean, there was great plays all the time. There was definitely some turnovers as well, great defensive stops. And it was just all around a really good game.
Yeah, AAC football is definitely underrated. I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch. Those were two good teams, and I think that's their second instant classic in as many years because they had a really good one last year as well. And I mean, it looked a little bit like SMU was going to run away with it. Memphis coming back and making a game of it. Very fun game.
Definitely. Well, and then you add the factor the next day when they found out that the entire SMU student section got kicked out for not wearing masks or not following COVID protocols.
Oh man, that's. I mean, you gotta be safe and be smart about it right now. I know. I mean, obviously, I work on a college campus. And I know the number of cases and the number of teams that. I mean, right now, college campuses are like the biggest spreading ground of it, and I think that's why you gotta, especially if you're those kids, be more careful.
Definitely. And hopefully they'll learn, and hopefully they'll be wearing masks next the following weeks.
Hope so. I mean, then we can get back to full crowds and get back to
Storm in the field.
storming the field. Absolutely.
What game jumped out at you, the NFL wise?
I mean, I'm gonna go with Cowboys Browns, and I mean, I'm gonna steal your term from last week. This was your Stephon game. It had everything. It had a wide receiver throwing a touchdown pass to another wide receiver. It had crazy offense. It had, I mean, the Cowboys being down so much and then battling back, only to lose the game on a blocked extra point that gets returned for a touchdown by the Browns. I mean, it was definitely a fun game that had it all. Lots of scoring. Not that that necessarily is the marker of a good game, but it was a lot of fun and a lot of craziness in that Cowboys Browns game. And it's crazy to believe that the Browns are 3-1.
It is crazy. They do seem like a really good team, but I've kind of noticed a pattern there. Like the Browns are actually a better team when they're ahead compared to being trailed. You saw it in the first week when they were trailing against Baltimore and they just couldn't do anything right. And then the past 3 weeks, they've been ahead for almost all these games, and it just shows how different of a team they are when they're ahead compared to being behind.
Absolutely. And it shows the Cowboys have the ability to battle back from behind. We saw it in that Atlanta game. They almost rallied against Seattle, and then they almost rallied this week against the Browns. And let's face it, the Cowboys are probably automatically going to get to the playoffs just because of how bad that NFC East is. So let's face it, the Cowboys, while they may have taken the loss, it may not have hurt them the way it would have hurt the Browns.
Oh, it's going to be a fascinating ride towards this season, seeing the NFC East, and it could be a reality, folks. We could have maybe a 6-10 team making it to the playoffs, and probably getting a home game to go about it since they won the division.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that division is so rough right now. I was shocked to see the Eagles get that win and over the Niners, but that being said, I mean, there is just a lot of turmoil in that division. I still think Dallas is the best team in that division. They've just kind of they don't have a good defense, but they can score a lot of points and they can make it exciting.
Yeah, definitely, and they definitely have the firepower. Seeing Dak really compose himself after really a horrendous first half. He really came back in the second half and started getting it going. Cowboys need to find a way to put it all together and win and play all 4 quarters and maybe win.
Absolutely. I think the fact that they should have some division games coming up should only help them too.
Definitely, and we'll see how it is.
Absolutely. What jumped out at you from the NFL week?
Tommy, Tommy Brady, coming back for with the Buccaneers and Chargers game. The Chargers really dominated most of that first half, and that included a pick six on Brady. But Tommy, led him back, and you could tell the comeback was happening when at the end of the first half when the Chargers fumbled the snap and Buccaneers scored the touchdown right away, right before the half. It was such a backbreaking turnover, and it's just like, oh, I knew like the Buccaneers were going to come back, and then Tommy just throwing 5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers. He seems to be enjoying the Florida sunshine. He seems to be enjoying his weapons, and he's still making gold out of poop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw that play, as you mentioned, that first half, final drive of the first half turnover by the Chargers. And I mean, you could smell that the winds of change were coming and the Buccaneers were going to come back and rally and win that game. I mean, let me ask you this, though. That play might have been my bonehead move of the week. I don't know if that's going to be a thing moving forward, but the bonehead move of the week for me was the Chargers running that play. They have 40 seconds left on the clock at that point, and they have the momentum. So, and right before that, Mike Evans takes a personal foul penalty that backs up the punt into deeper into Buccaneers territory as opposed to flipping the field position game as much as it should have. And a huge credit to the Chargers player there that got shoved and didn't shove back and let that 15-yard penalty be a 15-yard penalty. So you got all the momentum and you have 40 seconds left on the clock. You could go down and get another score, but instead you run the ball on your first down play, especially after your top running back Austin Eckler goes out. I didn't get that play. It didn't make any sense to me. What was the decision process there?
I think they were just trying to run out the clock, just kind of run out the clock and, go to halftime, take the lead, all that fun stuff. I mean, it was just a bad quarterback to running back exchange. I mean, the snap looked good. Herbert just kind of missed the mark, and it was just bad on the quarterback and running backs. It was just bad.
I
And
agree. I think it was bad. I think it was just a bad design. I think if you're going to try and run out the clock, I think you take a knee there. And if you're not, I think you got to go down the field. And when people do beat Tom Brady, it's usually because they're trying to – when they have him down, you got to go for the jugular. It's Tom Brady on the other side. You got to go for the jugular. If there's 40 seconds left, even if you go down and get a field goal – but if you go down and get that touchdown, especially since at that time your team had all the momentum, you got to go do it, and you got to get that extra touchdown to go up 17 before that.
I definitely, and I do got to give the Chargers credit. Like, they did battle back. Like, when Brady got it to 31-24, Chargers went right down the field the next drive and just hit a long bomb, and boom, got the momentum right back. But unfortunately, Tommy's Tommy, and he found a way to win it.
I mean, the Chargers, for me, I mean, they've definitely shown that they have the potential to be a really good team this season. They hung close with the Chiefs. They hung close with the Buccaneers. They've gotten a win. I mean, they're a team that I think you can see that the pieces are there for them to try and maybe take that next step. Maybe not this year, but in the next year or two, to really becoming a second team in that AFC West.
It's funny though, like, they have a case to be either 3-1 or 2-2, or they have a case also if the Bengals kicker hadn't really shanked that 30-yard field goal in week 1, they could easily be 0-4.
Absolutely. And it seems like every year the Chargers find themselves in these one possession games every week and find a way to usually lose a couple of them. And I mean, that's kind of their MO a little bit this season. Like I said, I love that defense, and I think that they have some of those pieces that can really make a difference going forward.
Definitely. And I kind of really like Herbert as a quarterback. I was a little skeptical during the draft. I really wasn't sure. I thought he was okay at Oregon. He had some good games and then he had some bad games, but he has really, have exceeded my expectations. And the fact that he came in and didn't even know he was going to start until probably 5 minutes before the game was supposed to start, and, really go toe to toe with the Chiefs, and then hunt tough against Carolina, and then again match wits with Tommy, going head to head against them, against the Buccaneers. I'm definitely a bright future for Herbert and the Chargers.
Yeah, they're a team that I definitely have my eye on going forward. I think it's going to be interesting once again to see how they stack up against the Raiders, a team that also seems to be like it might be trying to jockey for that second spot too in the AFC West, and just kind of see which one of those teams really wants to take that next step.
Exactly. It's going to be a fun next couple of years for the AFC West.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, our Broncos also in the mix there and have been struggling. They got their first win on Thursday night. Yeah, exactly. Woo! Go Broncos.
We'll go 0-16, baby.
What did you think of the first start from Brett Rippon, and what do you think about them getting that first victory?
He had some good moments, and then he had some bad moments. I thought the bad moments were going to outweigh it during the fourth quarter when he threw those back-to-back interceptions, and he just went like, "Oh no, here it comes again." But thankfully, the possession after he let the after his second interception, he drove the team down. Got a lucky call from the Jets for the face mask, but then drove down, had a couple of nice completions on third down, and drove the team to field goal range. And it was really nice. It was just a nice calm composure. It's like, okay, let's go, let's score, let's get back the lead. And he let the defense do the work. And Melvin Gordon has been a nice offseason addition for the Broncos. He's been running hard, and that touchdown was unbelievable.
It certainly was. So was that touchdown by Sam Darnold in the first quarter of that one, as he was able to scamper for that touchdown. That was a good Thursday night game. I think obviously people weren't as excited about it since it was two 0-3 teams, but I think it was an exciting game. Did you happen to watch any of the post game on the NFL Network?
I did not actually. I kind of turned it off. I was okay. We won. That's great. I just want to enjoy the victory.
Exactly. Wanted to go celebrate it, huh?
Well, quarantine celebration. Let's put it that way.
Excellent. Well, if you watch some of that post game, Steve Smith, senior, the former wide receiver for the Panthers, tears into Jets defensive coordinator Greg Williams. If you haven't looked up the clips, I suggest you do so. It was definitely like he was going after him for the hits on Brett Rippon in the last few minutes of that game, as the Broncos are trying to wind out those last 13 seconds. What did you think of those hits and by the Jets defense? I think one or both of them resulted in unnecessary roughness penalties or roughing the passer penalties. What did you think of those hits?
It was scary. I was not gonna lie. I was kind of screaming at the TV. I'm like, why aren't we putting the ball? It was fourth down too, so it was just like, I know we're trying to run out the clock here. There's like little less than 15 seconds. And I'm like, just punt the ball. I know the special teams have been really suspect this season for the Broncos, but I feel like they could kind of max protect. If not, just get a holding call, just get that call and all that. And it was just very frustrating because it's always been one of Fangio's knacks. It's just him as a game manager. I think it's just not very good. I've never liked his game management skills the past two seasons, and it's really kind of showing. And seeing that your quarterback's getting absolutely killed. I mean, thank God Brett Rippon did not get in a serious injury, because what would have happened if he got like a shoulder separation surgery injury? He would have been crucified here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said there. I don't get Fangio's clock management strategies, and we've seen it come up a couple of times already this season. And it's like if you try to run out the 13 seconds, he brought Jeff Driscoll in for a random play during the middle of the game. So I don't get why, if you're going to do that, sacrifice Driscoll, or if not, then just hand the ball off to Gordon and have him run back and forth and run out those 13 seconds just running back and forth between the sidelines. Like, don't just chuck it up, because that's going to stop the clock too, obviously.
I know, and it was fourth down. It was less than 15 seconds. They had no timeouts, and we were up by 9. What are they going to do?
Right, exactly.
Nothing really.
Let McManus even try a 65-yarder or whatever it would have been.
That would have been an interesting kick. Why not?
Right. And then obviously the Jets defense coming through with those hits on Rippon was what Steve Smith said was unnecessary, and that the Greg Williams defense has a history of those kind of extra violent hits on the quarterback.
They did, and they had a lot of roughing the passer penalties. I think they had, I believe, 3 or 4 during the game, and then they had a backbreaking penalty as well with the face mask on third down during the game-winning field goal drive. There, it would have been fourth down. We probably would have punted, and would have. It was just a very, yeah. They're not very disciplined with that Greg Williams defense. It's kind of his mo. And it's just, I feel like sometimes he has to dirty it up sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously he has that bounty scandal in his past. And I mean, if you get the chance, Steve Smith says it a lot better and a lot more funny than I just did it, but definitely check it out. And I mean, it was, like I said, it was a crazy game on Thursday night. And question is, Giants or Jets, which team has the better chance of going 0-16?
Jets for sure. The Jets aren't a very good team, and we just saw today that Sam Darnold's going to be week to week with the shoulder strain, and our good buddy Joe Flacco's starting. So we'll see if Jet fans are wacko for Flacco.
Absolutely. I mean, those two teams might combine to go 0-32, but we'll see what ends up happening. Rough
I
time.
will get the Giants credit; like they hung in that game with the
They
Rams.
did.
Like it, even though I didn't feel like the Giants were going to win, they did hang in and they got to the drive, and then the drive stalled thanks to another turnover by Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, and again, they're in the NFC East, so they have a lot more winnable games on their schedule than I believe the Jets do. Because even the Dolphins, these last couple of weeks, they hung in with Seattle, who I think is one of the top teams in the league. And I mean, they've at least shown the ability to battle. They hung in with Buffalo as well. So I think the Jets are definitely in the tougher spot division-wise.
Definitely, I think that was probably the Broncos game was probably the Jets' best chance at probably winning a game, and now it's looking like an 0-16 season for the Jets.
Absolutely. Although, let's see what happens. Maybe the Patriots with Brian Hoyer, maybe a chance for them because again, another Patriots player, Gilmore, has tested positive for COVID. Do you think there's even going to be a Broncos Patriots game this weekend?
I believe so. It's going to be interesting. I don't think it's probably going to be played on the Sunday as it's planned. Maybe it's going to be another case of a Monday, Tuesday type of thing. And again, we'll see what the test results, and it's going to be interesting. And seeing with Cam out and now Stephon Gilmore out, we're seeing a lot of big name players for the Patriots testing positive for COVID.
I think they should have to forfeit. I think that the Broncos should get the victory because the Patriots, have almost could be on the verge of infecting the league, and so out of safety, I think the Patriots should have to forfeit the game and the Broncos be declared the winners, go to 2-3, and then see what happens from there.
It is interesting. I do give the NFL credit for its like fluctuation of seeing, that the fact that they moved the Chiefs Patriots game to Monday night, and we see that the Lions and Saints, the Saints player tested positive, but then they retested and found out it was a false positive. I think the NFL is going to probably just play the wait and see approach for most of these games, and if they have to push it to either Monday or Tuesday, they'll find a way to push it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I hope it happens, but I also wouldn't be minded if the Broncos were declared the winners by forfeit.
That would be fun, yes, and I wouldn't mind if Cam Newton sat out another game. So that would be fun.
Yeah, I think so. MLB playoffs again. We got down to the final four in each league. Who you got?
I think my prediction before it's probably Dodgers and Yankees coming out. Dodgers looked really well, even though Padres had some chances. Yankees looked really good as well, even though the series is tied 1-1. I feel like the offense is still humming, even though it is in San Diego. And the Astros have come out of nowhere. It's crazy. I guess that postseason experience is really starting to pay off for the Astros.
Yeah, you might have to check and see if they're banging on trash cans or something there because they're looking really good, and they are up 3 right now on the verge of a sweep of the A's, who I think were a really good team, especially bullpen wise. So
Yeah, and they've been scoring a ton of runs as well, and they've been getting clutch hits, and it's just frustrating as a baseball fan seeing this team that clearly cheated doing so well.
absolutely, I mean, obviously they were a team that I think for the I don't know if it's one of those ones where like for the integrity of baseball, it's better if the Astros do well this season and then advance to the World Series, not cheating, or is it a situation where okay, cheaters proof, and it would have been better for baseball had they gone out in the first round against Minnesota?
Yeah, we'll see. Uh, I'm I'm kind of hoping they kind of fall off a little bit, but again, they have postseason experience. A ton of these players have been there since 17, 18, 19, 20. So you can't doubt that postseason experience.
You really can't. I mean, obviously the A's are one of those teams like you'd love to see them finally get over the hump, especially since Billy Beane, even since the early 2000s, has done such a good job of building that franchise with a shoestring budget. Unfortunately, it looks like they might be on their way out.
I know another first round exit or an DS exit for the A's.
Yeah.
You want to talk about NBA for like a minute?
Yeah, we'll talk about the NBA for a minute.
I really have not watched any of the finals, to be honest. I probably the most I've watched is probably a, a half of game two, and that's about it. Like I really haven't watched any of the games. I mean, they had a game four last night, and really the only and what I watched instead of the NBA finals, I decided to watch Sudden Death. Jean Claude Van Dam movie. So I decided to watch those. Decided to watch that over the NBA finals.
I saw that they remade that. It looks like a new version of that.
I actually did watch the remake on Netflix, and
Oh, it's on
it is a very, very bad movie. I don't recommend it. It feels like a direct to home video remake of Sudden Death, and it is very bad.
Yeah, I mean, Sudden Death, obviously an award-winning film of sorts,
It's
but
it's
a very fun late night watch. And
it was I know it was so bad the remake. I had to watch the original just to get that bad taste out of my mouth.
I mean, it is a hilarious part. I love the part where he's fighting the Penguins mascot or the person disguised as the Penguins mascot.
Oh, definitely, and the kills are very, very interesting as far as Jean Claude Van Damme killing somebody.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely. Yeah, who wouldn't want to watch Sudden Death instead of the NBA Finals?
I know I am. I'm one of these people.
Honestly, you've watched a half more of the NBA Finals than I have. I mean, unfortunately, the NBA isn't the brand of basketball that I love to see. I love to see these like tightly. I like defense in my game, in my basketball games. That's why I love watching the NCAA tournament. You see a lot more defense in that game, and I think like obviously the Lakers are a far more talented team. And I think that maybe it's because we know that they're going to advance. We know that they're this built to be this juggernaut. And maybe that's why it just hasn't been something that I felt like I needed to watch.
Well, it feels like it's predetermined, right? After the refing, after the complaint that the Lakers did about to the refs against the Nuggets, and it just felt that way. Like it feels like pro wrestling to me sometimes. Like it just feels like it's predetermined, and I'm like, the Lakers are going to win. Why would I want to watch it?
Because you watch pro wrestling.
That is true. Yes, that is true. I do watch pro wrestling.
Or at least pro wrestling is sort of trying to hide the fact that it's not trying to hide what it is. And I feel like the NBA is along those same lines, very much like, okay, these are the teams that we want to see. I mean, I guess Miami kind of a sleeper there, but
Yeah. But yeah, it's been I don't really care for the NBA finals.
I don't either. I mean, I know we're supposed to be having a serious sports show where we discuss the big issues in sports, but it's the NBA of the 90s combined with like the theatrics of the Harlem Globetrotters and like you said pro wrestling. Honestly, I think it's the same concept of pro wrestling too, of acting like a foul hurts you way worse than it actually did. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of overlapping.
It's a bad finals when I really want to watch a Jean Claude Van Damme movie over an NBA finals.
But it's sudden death. I mean, it's
I
definitely
know. You can't go wrong with Sudden Death. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So, and Hollywood had the audacity to besmirch it with its remake.
I'll watch the remake and then I'll weigh in on this next week. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know how much you really can besmirch the movie. He dresses up as a goalie at one point and makes a key save in Game 7.
Well, it's a little bit different this time. Jean Claude Van Dam was a firefighter. The new version, the guy is like an ex like special forces unit. Uh, it's it's not Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Instead, it's just opening night of some random team names. They don't even have like NBA teams, so it's just a random team name like the Phoenix. They were called the Phoenix Falcons. It was just bad.
I'm surprised that the Penguins and Blackhawks consented to have their teams used in that movie.
I know exactly. It was just bad on all levels. Like the premise is still kind of the same, but I just feel like the stakes were a lot lower compared to the original Sudden Death.
One thing we know for sure is that the SP and Bushy show is the only sports talk podcast that you can go to that will spend more time talking about sudden death than we will the NBA finals.
Definitely. Yes. So if you want your sudden death talk, come to us.
Absolutely. We will do a whole film study on sudden death.
That's for a later date.
Absolutely. I think, that'll be our reaction video. We'll just sit down and watch sudden death and then just react and have some fun with it.
Absolutely.
If you haven't checked it out, go back and watch our first episode where we talk about the top 10 sports movie choke jobs of all time. That was a lot of fun, and we still are talking about sports movies, so maybe this is the sports and movie podcast.
Definitely. I got a lot of appreciation about my list, and some we left out, but I didn't really care for the ones that we kind of left out. But
What did they say we left out?
well, they talked about the guards in The Longest Yard. The guards team, had a 21-point lead, and again, you had a quarterback who's faking, who's basically shaving points to help this team win, and yeah, they come back and actually do win the game. The Meme Machine.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair one.
Yeah, but I feel like it left out because when they played together, really the Meme Machine looked like a better team than the guards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we don't know the experience level of the guards, but I mean, if you look at the starting quarterback matchup, Paul Crew, when he was trying, is definitely a better on paper quarterback than a guy in Captain Knauer, who was a full-time prison guard and never quite made the league.
Yeah, and it just looked like they had better players too. The Meme Machine. It just felt like they had better, stronger, faster athletes.
And Brucey.
And Brucey, yes.
Brucey's time to shine.
Brucey, hey, an important onside kick. I mean, an important onside kick. Even though he can't kick worth shit, he found a way to get the ball back.
Absolutely. It's like last week when you talked about Goldberg scoring in D3.
Definitely. Brucey was definitely the weak link of the Meme Machine.
Absolutely.
All right. So what came about this sports nickname podcast? Because obviously you're the one that suggested this list to me.
I mean, this one doesn't have like a huge deep meaning, but I host a trivia night here at a local bar. And one of the things that I did as one of my categories was I named the nickname and then you got to name the athlete. And that kind of led me on to a diatribe into sports nicknames. And there's obviously a lot of great ones. And the trivia that I host is with a lot of people who aren't sports fans. I think there's like one or two that are big sports fans. But other than that, it's not a lot of sports fans, so I figured we would bring it here, be able to discuss some of the more obscure and more fun nicknames as well, and then just kind of go into it. There's so many different sports nicknames. There's so many different sports that put an emphasis on it. Obviously, UFC, boxing, hockey, everyone's got a nickname. And, I mean, we both came up with lists, and our lists are a lot more different than last week's as we discussed before we came on air.
Absolutely. And we left a lot of good nicknames out, folks. And I feel like the honorable mention is probably going to be longer than the actual list for us.
Absolutely. I think this may be a conversation we have to come back to, maybe revisit as we go sport by sport, maybe sometime down the road. But I mean, I know some of the ones I left off. I left off Anderson the Spider Silva in the UFC. One of my
Ooh.
top ones, just because the Spider kind of matches the way he moves in the octagon. It's tough leaving him off.
Yeah, another one I left off. I'm not sure. Some people consider it a sport, some people don't, and that's NASCAR. I left out the Intimidator, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Just a great nickname, and
Absolutely.
or Dale Earnhardt Sr. I'm sorry, not Junior.
Right, absolutely. That one is a good one too. Um, so many that we left off. Clyde the Glide Drexler, love that one. Maybe it's because back in like the day I had NBA Shootout '98, and it was like the only NBA game I had for like 10 years, and so I played it with like Clyde the Glide Drexler so many times. Um,
Well, we left out a good one too. Obviously, Eldrick Tiger Woods. Yeah, I
oh,
mean, does anybody call him Eldrick outside his parents? I mean, really, like everybody calls him Tiger. It's, but I feel like with like Tiger Woods, it's just that's his name. I feel like he's Tiger Woods, not Eldrick Woods.
yeah, absolutely. I think
Eldrick Tiger Woods.
that's a point that we're going to come back to later. Absolutely, and because it's going to come back on my list at some point. And I know that Dr. J is another great one. Dr. J. Julius Irving is another one we left off. The big unit was another one you talked about before we came on air.
Yeah, yeah, the big unit, Randy Johnson, big, intimidating guy, and he looks so intimidating on the mound, and then having that sidearm delivery, and he can throw 99 to 100 miles an hour. There's just no stopping it sometimes.
Absolutely. And I mean, once again, there are just so many great nicknames, and it's tough to narrow it down the list. And it's so tough.
It is tough, and hopefully we'll give out a good list and something different. I don't feel like we're doing generic nicknames sometimes, and yeah. How did you compile your list?
It was so tough. I just kind of went with ones that jumped out to me, ones that I remembered, and ones. I mean, obviously, I think I was big on alliteration and rhymes and plays on words.
Definitely. I did a lot of rhyming for me, so just stuff that rolled off the tongue that just sounded really good, and it just rolled off your tongue. And you always say the nickname first, or you say the name of the person along with the nickname.
Absolutely, and I think I might even be making a change to my list just because I thought of another great one that I might have omitted. So I might be switching it up here in a second.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
All right, start with your number 10.
My number 10 is actually one that we'll get to later on yours, so I think you better start with your number 10.
Okay, for me, I decided to go out of left field here. I have Clipboard Jesus, Charlie Whitehurst. Again, a guy who, was really a all-time backup quarterback. Like really that's all he did was just like hold a clipboard. It just happened that he looked like a religious figure in Jesus Christ, and it's just so good for him that the fact that he really never played a really any significant amount of professional football, but the fact that he has his own nickname, it's just a testament to just how great that nickname is too.
Absolutely, that is a great one, and I think I actually am going to put the nickname I just thought of and put it in at number 10 instead of the previous number 10 that I had, and that's going to be Big Poppy David Ortiz.
Ooh, that's a good nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Big Poppy. Everybody calls him Big Poppy. He was just a lovable guy.
Absolutely. He had that warm heart that you kind of expect from someone named Poppy. I mean, once again, it was one of those guys that really got the royal treatment on his way out as he retired. So
All right. So what is your number 9?
my number 9, I mean, I love your number 10, by the way. Clipboard Jesus is a hilarious nickname. It's fun. And I mean, like you said, how often does a backup get a full-fledged nickname? But my number 9, we're going to football, and it's going to be the Galloping Ghost, Red Grange, um, for no reason other than I like the nickname.
He was a special player back in the day, and just a great nickname too. It just seemed like all the great football players around that time always had a good nickname.
And it seemed like he didn't even need one since he was already called Red. And I mean, nevertheless, he's still got a good nickname. And I mean, the
Yeah.
Galloping Ghost is great, especially as we're rolling into October.
So for my number 9, we'll discuss this a little bit later, but I have Carl the Mailman Malone.
Yeah.
Just a solid nickname, but I believe we'll get to it a little later in the top 10, and we'll discuss it then.
Absolutely, yeah. My number 8, I'm going to UFC, and this is my top UFC nickname. Obviously, there are a lot of great UFC nicknames. Rowdy Ronda Rousey's one, Chuck the Iceman Liddell, the Huntington Beach Bad Boy, Tito Ortiz, and I mean, so many more. But the one for me that stands out is Keith, the Dean of Mean Jardine. Like I said, I love the way it rhymes, and I mean, the Dean of Mean, ooh, it's such a good nickname.
He's a great fighter, and it's just a great fighter with a great nickname.
Absolutely. And now I think he's hoping to turn it into some sort of an acting career. So maybe he'll appear in Sudden Death 3.
Oh, hope so, yeah. Or the Expendables 4 if they end up doing that.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure that's coming soon.
Yes. So
Awesome.
for
Where's your
my
number 8?
number so for my number 8, I decided to go out in left field. I always like doing this with my top 10 list. I like out of left field type of nicknames. And I'm going to go to the world of billiards here. And I'm going to go with the Black Widow, Jeanette Lee.
Ooh.
Yes.
Awesome.
I figured since I watched a lot of ESPN2 back in the day, and it just felt like from 7 a.m. to noon, they had billiards on the entire time. And the Jeanette Lee was always on, especially in the women's division, and that's what they always called her. They called her the Black Widow, and she just dominated the women's division in billiards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was ESPN2 actually lends itself to some great nicknames too, especially if you get into the World Series of Poker nicknames as well. But if you look at it, yeah, Jeanette Lee, great nickname. And I like you sometimes on those Saturday mornings when it wasn't college football season. Sometimes you just flipped on ESPN and Jeanette Lee was there doing 9-ball or trick shot magic or something impressive. And I mean, she definitely is a good pull there on the deep cut. I love it.
Definitely. All right. So what is your number 7?
My number 7 is Marco Antonio Barrera, the baby-faced assassin in the world of boxing. He won a couple of titles, and I mean, the baby-faced assassin is such a great nickname. And I mean, I said it's
Oh,
a fun one.
he was an amazing fighter, and again, to go along with the nickname Babyface Assassin, he did have that babyface motto, and he was just an unbelievable boxer, and just he had great power as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tough leaving Floyd Money Mayweather off the list because it does represent him well since he makes all that money. But like I said, I just love the creativity of the baby-faced assassin.
Absolutely.
How are you? What was your number 7?
So for number 7, I'm going back to the world of football here. I got Dick Night Train Lane. Just an amazing nickname, and he was an amazing cornerback for his day for the Lions. And it's just, and again, rolls off the tongue well, Dick Night Train Lane. I think everybody has to revert his name that way. Like everybody had to call him like Dick Night Train Lane.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Another deep cut, another good pull. I love it.
So what do you have for your number 6?
Number 6, I'm going to show my Colorado bias here a little bit, and I'm going to go with Chuck Nasty, Charlie Blackmon, the center fielder, now right fielder for the Colorado Rockies. Just a great nickname, and I mean, he's really kind of embraced that almost as like a persona, so to speak. Chuck Nasty, Charlie Blackmon.
Well, it's great too because he puts it as a Z too, so he adds a little spice to it. NAZTY compared to NASTY.
Right. For those of you who aren't Colorado people and don't know, yeah, it's Nazty, Chuck Nasty. I mean, very fun player, very eccentric character, and I mean, he's a one who definitely deserves a good nickname. And Chuck Nasty's great. I think it's one that he gave himself too, so it's perfect.
He's just overall just a great hitter and a great fielder and a great personality. I love Blackman, and he's just overall great. And it just seems like too with the national media, he's a great interviewer too, because he kind of speaks the truth, and he kind of keeps it all out on the field.
Absolutely. And I mean, he's got like the huge beard, which I think lends itself to the persona too.
Definitely.
What was your number 6?
So number 6, I'm going to the world of hockey, and I have the great one, Wayne Gretzky. And and just looking back with this nickname, like he got nicknamed the Great One, like really early in life, like during his when he was playing like Pee Wees, when he was dominating Pee Wees, when he dominating juniors. That's how he got the nickname, and just the fact that he was called the Great One and he lived up to the Great One hype is just a testament to just how great Wayne Gretzky was.
Oh, absolutely. He is one of the most phenomenal players of all time. And I mean, the great one is very apt for him. Absolutely. And it was one that, I mean, once again, another honorable mention one on my list.
Yeah, hockey had some good nicknames too. Obviously, you're going to have one that's going to come up. But another nickname that we kind of left off the list too was Maurice Rocket Richard as well. Just a great goal scorer back in the day for the Canadians, and what just an unbelievable nickname because he did have a rocket of a shot back in the day.
Absolutely. That was another great one that I left off the list. And then Super Mario for Mario Lemieux was another one that unfortunately didn't quite make it.
All right.
Another fun one for honorable mention, if we're talking hockey, I love Cujo for Curtis Joseph. That's a good one too.
It's good, but again, it just plays off like the name of.
Right.
I'm not a fan of playing off like your name, kind of with A Rod, with Alex Rodriguez and Aaron Rodgers. But I kind of get it.
Absolutely. That's why ultimately it didn't make the list for me. Same with Oli the goalie, Olaf Kolzig from back in the day as well.
Definitely, and I enjoyed as well too. Pavel Bure, the Russian Rocket. So obviously playing off the case of Maurice Richard, and it's just Pavel Bure was something special in the early '90s.
He sure was. Absolutely. He was fun to watch. So many great ones in the world of hockey. It was tough to admit some. Like I said, we probably could go back and do this list again with the top 10 by each sport.
Definitely. So what was your number 6?
Let's see. My number 6, I believe, was Chuck Nasty. What was your? Oh, no,
Oh
yours
yeah,
was
it's great.
a great
Wayne
one.
Gretzky.
So we'll go
Okay,
to number 5. Mine is
number 5.
number 5 is the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. I mean, obviously, it talks about how dangerous he was as a player, and then also, such a dangerous player, and it's also a really cool nickname for someone who unfortunately left us too soon. But man, what a great player! And then again, just a great nickname for him.
He was a great player, and everybody revert use that nickname. It's like, oh, Black Mamba, there he is, Black Mamba, Kobe, just doing work.
And again, another guy who really didn't even need a nickname because Kobe is okay. He's only Kobe, or only big name Kobe in the world of sports. So I mean, he really could have left it alone. But the fact that he even got a cooler nickname on top of it is just saying a lot.
Yeah, and he was an awesome player, and just an awesome assassin, and just a very trustworthy player at the end of games.
Absolutely, so good. And I mean, I love the fact that he tore his Achilles, made 2 free throws, and then walked off the court.
Definitely, yeah, and you see it too now with the sporting world. After his passing, that a lot of people are now residing some stuff as like Mamba mentality.
Absolutely. And I mean, that just goes to speak to the legend that was Kobe Bryant. 5th on our list, we'll see if anyone else, wants, or 5th on my list, and we'll see if anyone else on the comment section may have even had him higher because obviously he was such an important figure in a lot of people's lives.
He was.
What was your number 5?
So for number 5, I'm going back to the world of boxing. I have Iron Mike Tyson.
Ooh.
Just an unbelievable boxer. Just I did a lot during quarantine of just YouTubing Mike Tyson fights, and just, my God, like the fact that if you got past the first or second round against him, what you should deserve a medal or a championship. He was just that good, and he just bewildered opponents, and he just beat the crap out of everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tyson in his prime was fun to watch, and again, that's kind of how he got the nickname Iron. It was because it was like getting hit with a piece of iron, how hard he punched, because he did end so many fights by a knockout, just a super hard puncher. If you watch UFC now, there's another guy who kind of reminds me of Tyson in a similar aspect, and it's Francis Ngannou, and he is another knockout artist, just like Tyson was. And Tyson, again, another guy who really didn't need a nickname, but man, that iron really spoke to how hard he hit.
Yeah, he was just an amazing, and everybody, kind of calls him that now. And again, my rolling off the tongue thing, Iron Mike Tyson.
Absolutely. That's a great nickname, and I mean, obviously a fantastic fighter.
Definitely. So we're to number 4 now, right?
Yep, number 4. And my
Number
number
4.
4, we're going back to hockey for me, and this is my first stint, I believe, in hockey. And it's going to be the Dominator, Dominic Hasek. This one
Ooh,
kind of does go a little bit against, it is just a play on his name, but I mean, the Dominator does describe how he was in the net, basically carried that Sabres team into a Stanley Cup Finals appearance.
he was an amazing goalie, and probably the first goalie that reminded me that of him stacking the pads. I remember him stacking the pads a lot of the time, or at least seeing a lot of photos of him stacking pads. And he was just an unbelievable goalie, and just, I agree with you, carrying those Sabre teams in the mid to late '90s.
Absolutely fun player to watch. And then, I mean, obviously, like you just think about the Dominator, and that's who it is. And
He did. He dominated hockey games. I mean, I know it was the dead puck era, but you can't fault the goaltending at that time. Like, he was just that good.
I mean, he really was absolutely. I mean, he was, like I said, one of those guys that you just remember, and you remember the nickname too, just because of how much he sticks with you.
Absolutely, and props to his. He probably has an iconic goalie mask as well. I mean, literally, it's just a regular hockey helmet with a cage, and I think people remember of him as that.
Absolutely. Like I said, a very iconic player, and one that, I haven't thought about in a while until like I started coming up with this list.
Yeah, and I miss goalies like that. Really, like there really isn't a lot of goalies like that now.
Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, it feels like, I mean, the goalies are just, I mean, yeah, there isn't like that standout guy, it feels like right now in the league.
Definitely. Well, hopefully we'll get that in a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Henrik Lundqvist maybe was that guy for a while with the Rangers, but it definitely doesn't feel like there's been that guy.
Yeah, I feel like the days where goalies dominated are kind of done as of right now.
True. And I mean, Henrik Lundqvist, another guy who had a nickname with King Henrik, too.
Definitely. Forgot about that one.
Absolutely. What was your number 4?
So number 4, going to the world of baseball. I have shoeless Joe Jackson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very very prominent player, especially those White Sox teams back in the day, and he was just amazing. And I love, like, how they got the nickname. Just the fact that he hit like I believe a stand-up double, and he took off his shoes just right there, and that's how the nickname stuck of Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of those iconic ones, and one that I forgot. Another one that I was really close on my list, too, was Charlie Hustle for Pete Rose, another guy who similar reputation, I would say, as Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Absolutely, yeah. The two great nicknames, and just an unbelievable player. It's just a shame that he's, not in the Hall of Fame because of the whole Black Sox scandal. But at least people will remember him, and the nickname does help.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Good old Shoeless. One of those ones that, like you said, is pretty much remembered by nickname alone. So it definitely should earn a prominent place on this list, too.
Definitely.
Awesome.
All right, so we'll go to what is your number 3?
My number 3 is your number 9, and it's Karl Malone, the mailman. I mean, Karl Malone was just a player that I absolutely loved growing up. Fun player to watch. And then the mailman was a perfect name for him because he always delivered. And I think that's what stood out to me about that nickname. I mean, it's not the coolest nickname ever, but it is definitely one that I loved, and I loved the meaning behind it.
It was an awesome nickname, and again, broadcasters always seem to put it in during their telecast. You can hear them, people's calling, "Oh, here's the mailman," jumper, good. And that's a prominent of a great nickname when people remember your nickname a lot compared to your actual name.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, second leading scorer of all time, and such a fun player to watch. And I mean, like I said, one of my top nicknames.
He was all in all just a all around a great player. Always put up good stats, and you can always count on him with that nice 18-foot fadeaway. It felt like an unstoppable shot back in the day.
Absolutely. Him and Stockton, one of the great duos of all time. And like I said, mailman always delivers.
He does, except for except when they played the Bulls in the finals.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, even in the Last Dance, that documentary by ESPN, you see him even come out to the Bulls bus and still congratulate him after one of those finals losses. So
Right.
classy guy in that respect too.
Absolutely, and it's just overall a great guy, and again, yeah, classic guy.
Absolutely. Now, what was your number 3?
So for number 3, staying in the world of baseball, I have Mr. October, Reggie Jackson.
How did I forget that one?
It's just such a great nickname, that they named an entire month after you. And again, a great story of how he got the nickname as well. I mean, they were, I think Thurman Munson was being interviewed, I think after a game in the playoffs as the Yankees, and he's like, "Hey, just go talk to Mr. October over there," and that's how the nickname stuck, and it really does pertain to his persona. I mean, during the playoffs, he would always feel like he can always come up with a big hit, and he always come up and be clutch and always delivered.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great nickname, and like you said, to have a month in your nickname that just is your month, and I mean, even now in playoff baseball, that's often discussed. And I mean, that's
Yeah,
the good thing about a nickname is the staying power of it. And I mean, even that he's still so highly talked about in October, and you flash back to all the clips of him still. It's such a sign of a good nickname.
oh, and it's awesomely fitting too. It's just like we're in October and we're discussing Mr. October.
Absolutely, that's perfect. It's apt. Love it.
All right, so what is your number 2?
My number 2 was the Sultan of SWAT. And that's one of the many nicknames of Babe Ruth. Well, I guess Babe is also one of his nicknames.
Yes, and the Colossus of Clout. Come on,
Colossus of Clout, the King of Crash, the
all
Great
these different
Bambino.
all these different nicknames. We probably could have done a top 10 list on Babe Ruth's nicknames.
Absolutely. I mean, for some reason, the Sultan of SWAT is the one I like the best. That's personal preference. There's nothing else behind it. I think maybe it's because my name starts with an S, or maybe it's because, like I said, I like the alliteration of it. But Sultan of SWAT is just it's a great one.
It is an unbelievable nickname, and I kind of left Babe Ruth out of the. I kind of put him as my honorable mention, and I think that's why, because he had so many nicknames. I just let him off, and it's just wow.
I mean, you got to give respect to a guy who pretty much has a whole segment of a movie dedicated to his nicknames.
Absolutely, and he was a very powerful hitter at his day, and you can definitely see why he was the great Bambino, or
Absolutely.
or the Colossus of Clout,
Or the Sultan of SWAT, which is
or
my
the Soul to
true nickname.
SWAT. Yes.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
It is.
And I could spend an hour talking about how good that movie is, but instead, let's talk about your number 2.
So my number 2, that it was it was actually supposed to be originally on your list, but you took it out. My number 2 is the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye. Again, just a great nickname. It really personified what this player was. You know, he was a big halfback that just very bruising, and he really was a Nigerian nightmare for most defenses back in the day for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I love that nickname. It's one of my favorite nicknames. Once again, the alliteration thing. He was originally my number 10. I switched him out for Big Poppy as soon as I remembered that I had meant to put Big Poppy on the list and forgot him. The Nigerian Nightmare, the reason for me that I had ended up having to switch him out and even drop him a little bit lower on the list was because that hit from Steve Atwater turned him from the Nigerian Nightmare into the Nigerian Wet Dream. He didn't do much after that.
It wasn't a very important hit, but I just got to give it props. You know, just a great nickname. I loved it, and he definitely was definitely a great nickname. Just definitely personified what this player was back in the day.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic nickname. I mean, I love the nickname. It's one that I still think about when I first thought about this idea of this discussion and this round of trivia that I did, and it was one of the ones that I included on that list because it is such an awesome nickname.
Oh, what were the nicknames on the list? I'm sure my number one and your number one was probably on there.
Actually, I left off my number one on that one because it was a little bit too easy, but I did put on the Nigerian Nightmare. I did put Chuck Nasty. I put
Okay.
Charlie Hustle by Pete, which was Pete Rose. I think I did put Cujo, Curtis Joseph. I put the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya on there.
Oh, another great boxing one.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great boxing one. Um, so yeah, there. I think there were those ones. I definitely had your number one on there as well.
Did people do well in that segment, or was it kind of like where you're like, oh God, you know?
It was very hit or miss.
Okay, it just depended on the group and if that
Yeah.
person knew sports.
And how much they know sports exactly. I mean, like I said, it's not the biggest sports group of all time. I mean, there's a couple of big sport heads in there, but still a fun thing to do. And I mean, I'm usually the only one that throws in those sports trivia questions, so I got to keep them on their toes.
Absolutely. Oh, maybe that'd be a good segment next week. You know, you do a sports trivia question, and maybe I'll answer it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to. I gotta dig deep if I'm gonna think of something to stump you there.
All right. Yeah.
I'll work on that though. I can definitely do that.
All right. What is your number one? You know, drum roll. Woo.
Boom. Drum roll. My number one is Magic Johnson, Irvin Magic Johnson. And it's for a lot of the reasons that we discussed earlier with Tiger Woods, actually. It's because no one calls him Irvin. Everyone calls him Magic Johnson. And so I guess because of the staying power of that name, and then because of the fact that it kind of took over as his actual name, as opposed to a nickname, I think is the reason that I had that as number one.
Absolutely. And again, it personifies what that guy was. He really was magical. Seeing him on a fast break with the Showtime Lakers, just unbelievable. Passing the ball, he passed it behind his head, or you know, off to the side, or does like this no look this way. He was just magical.
So fun to watch. And I mean, obviously, a player who was, once again, so respected by his colleagues and stuff. And I mean, a player who, like, embodied his nickname, lived up to his nickname, and once again led his team to those championships. And really, like I said, is now known by his nickname. Although he did forget to include his one of his greatest rivals, which was also one of the ones that I included in my round of trivia, and that is the Hick from French Lick, Larry Bird.
Oh yes. Oh, the Hick for French Lick. That's a great nickname. Not to mention one of his teammates too, with Big Game James Worthy.
Oh, absolutely. Big Game James. It's a great one, too. Like I said, this could be a 3-hour discussion, or at least something that we may need to break into individual sports.
Absolutely. We may have to do that. We'll do that later on.
Absolutely. We're going to keep it going, keep this podcast going. But we got to find out, what was your number one as far as.
All right, here we go. Drum roll. My number one. Going back, staying in the world of football, I'm going with William the Refrigerator Perry.
Ooh, love it.
Yes. So obviously, I don't know if anybody can really see. You know, I'm a fat guy. Let's put it that way. So I got to represent the fat people and the fact that the fridge had such a great nickname. and just an unbelievable nickname. Again, rolled off the tongue. We have William the Refrigerator Perry, and it's just all around good. And the fact that as a big guy in the world of football, he does the ultimate dream, and that's scoring a touchdown.
Absolutely. And I mean, he was the man, especially for those 80s Bears that were such a great team, such a great, such a great line that he was a part of. And I mean, you're a trim guy. You got that offensive line build, but you can still move it. I've seen you play O-line. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you, like Refrigerator Perry, you got the moves, but I mean, he was definitely a great nickname and one of those ones that definitely jumps out when you bring up this conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely, when you think of nicknames, that's probably one of the first 10 you probably think of is William the Refrigerator Perry.
Absolutely. And I mean, you got to give it some bonus points too, because they named a character in Jumanji, the I guess newer version with The Rock, Fridge, after obviously William Refrigerator Perry.
Absolutely. It's great. And it's a nickname that's stuck around for the past 35 years.
Absolutely. It's one that we will never forget.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that was our top 10 list. I mean, once again, we already listed a ton of honorable mentions, but if there's something we left out, or if there is something that we didn't rank high enough, please let us know in the comments. And like I said, we can include your own top 10 list if you want to. Like I said, this is all subjective. It's all for fun. So be sure to share your top 10 sports nicknames of all time with us. And is there anything else you want to add on the topic there, Bushy?
Again, just a ton of nicknames. And I noticed also that we left out wrestling nicknames. It was a discussion we had, but because there was just so many wrestling nicknames that we just decided that we may use it for another later date for top 10.
Absolutely. And we'll be back with another top 10 or another sort of feature type question next week. We hope you'll join us next week too.
Absolutely. And take care, everybody, and stay safe.